Okay, hi, and welcome to WattsUP, looking at some analysis of things that are happening in Zwift and racing, hopefully to give a better insight into what's going on behind the scenes, but also helping your own racing, especially as we start week 1 of the Zwift Racing League this week. So I've commentated on a few races over the weekend and also watched the Prem Division men and women happening this morning, my time, New Zealand. So today's topic I wanted to cover was, can a solo breakaway stay away? So in the men's race, which you can see, I'll follow and kind of show side by side one that's worked and one that hasn't, and what are the key parts to making a breakaway work and when you should do them. So if we look at what happened in the men's race this morning, the Prem Division, this is just after they're on their second lap, they've gone through their second sprint intermediary points. And this is where I want to talk about the best strategic points. So there's always got to be a little element of surprise as well. In this case, they've just gone through that sprint. You'd think that they would attack over the top of this, but actually what the rider does that breaks away is he attacks around a hairpin. The reason that's a good idea is in Zwift, you are slowed around a hairpin corner, and so if you can attack out of it, you can actually get away pretty quickly. So let's have a look what happens here. We can see they've just come through the sprint. We want to keep our eyes on a rider who is coming through the field. We see him there, Cheyne, Cheyne. So just sort of coming through the field at the moment, riding the same pace as these guys are around him are riding. But what I want to show you is what happens when we hit this hairpin, which is just coming up here. So I'll try and pause it right at the time there. So do you see here, if I can get the pen working here, there. Cheyne, 11 watts per kg, so an obvious attack out of that corner, and this is where he has decided to try and get that breakaway. So you can see there, he's just made it ahead. He's riding at 8.8 watts per kg. So before we go into point number 2, so point number 1, pick a strategic point. I do want to show you now what happened in a separate race. So this was the women's Tour de Boudica, and this is on the climb, the Petite QOM on the French course Caspat, and this is Antonia Reznikov, who decided to not so much use the element of attack, but do it on a climb where she had her biggest strength. So this is her strategic point, is doing it up a climb, and you can see she's racing at around 8.5 watts per kg compared to those behind her riding at about 5. So that leads on nicely to point number 2. So point number 2 is push watts as high as you possibly can. At this point, you're making the break. So she is riding 3 watts a kg over those behind her, and you can see immediately she's got 6 seconds on the rest of the field. And we can see the same thing happens when we look at Cheyne here. Tell me if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but Cheyne, again, pushing 8.5 watts a kg versus those behind him pushing 4, drops that aero power up to get a little bit more of a kick, and has managed to get just 2 seconds on the group behind. So that is point number 2, push watts super high and be able to get away. Now this is where we deviate as to a breakaway that has worked and one that hasn't worked. So Cheyne here pulling away to a nice 4-second lead, whereas we have Antonia on the women's Tour de Boudica. She's already sort of got a 7-second lead. So they're both at the same point here. But there's a point where this deviates, and let's have a look at what doesn't work in a solo breakaway. So we'll fast forward to she gains quite a bit of time. She goes over the top of this climb, and then we will see on the downhill, what is she doing? She is now 9, 11, 18 seconds ahead of those behind her. She's pushing 6 watts per kg. She's got daylight. And this comes down to my little third point, which is a crucial tip on Zwift. Your breakaway will not work if you do not get 15 seconds at least between you and those behind. So that doesn't matter if there's 2 behind you or a pack behind you, you need to have at least 15 seconds and before you start to drop watts to what still needs to be higher than the group behind, but they don't need to be like significantly higher. So you need to be 15 seconds ahead at this point, which is what Antonia does. If we look at a comparison here with Cheyne, what happens here? He is riding at that 8 watts a kg. He's going to start slowly sort of dying, essentially. He has a really good breakaway to start with, but eventually, as we can see, He's got a huge pack behind him, and the amount that he gets, as you can see, the pack crawling up behind, on the left-hand side, you see the effort he's putting in, and unfortunately, even though he's riding 6 watts per kg, that group behind is massive, and he never got beyond the sort of 6 seconds ahead of that group. So if you're starting to die a bit and you look at your screen and you're only 6 seconds ahead, you're not going to make it. Time to pull back. If you're starting to die a bit, you look up, you're 15 seconds ahead, you can still get there. You can pull back a couple of watts per kg, check you're ahead of those behind, and you'll still be able to make it. So there we go. 3 key points to making a breakaway stick in Zwift. 1, pick a strategic point. 2, push your watts super high at that point to get a kick, use your power up. And 3, do not back off until you have 15 seconds between you and that group behind. Thanks, enjoy, good luck everyone for your racing this week.